I never thought someone like Maeve would fall for an average guy like me. We seemed to belong in different worlds, her with her stunning beauty and high-flying career, me with my modest teaching salary and ordinary looks. The ring on her finger was a daily reminder that love could transcend social boundaries until her sister Amanda decided I was not worthy of Maeve. The breakup blindsided me like a sudden storm. Before I share how my heart was shattered and then unexpectedly rebuilt, let me know where you are watching from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you have ever been told you were not good enough for someone you loved. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood in Portland, I never imagined I would fall in love with someone from a completely different social circle. My life was comfortable but ordinary. My parents worked hard to provide for our family, my father as a plumber, and my mother as a nurse. They taught me the value of hard work, integrity, and kindness, values that would shape my future in ways I could never have predicted. I became a high school English teacher because I loved literature and wanted to inspire young minds. My apartment was small but cozy, filled with books and simple furniture. My friends were mostly fellow teachers and neighbors, ordinary people with ordinary lives. I dated occasionally but never found anyone who truly connected with me on a deeper level, until that fateful night at my friend Jason's dinner party. Jason had invited a mix of friends from different parts of his life. I arrived early to help set up, not expecting anything unusual from the evening. When Maeve walked through the door, time seemed to slow down. She had striking auburn hair that cascaded down her shoulders, intelligent green eyes that sparkled with curiosity, and a smile that lit up the entire room. She was wearing a simple black dress that somehow looked more elegant than anything I had ever seen. We ended up sitting next to each other at dinner. I was nervous at first, sure that someone as beautiful as her would have nothing in common with me. But as we started talking, we discovered a shared love of classic literature, obscure indie bands, and hiking. The conversation flowed effortlessly, and I found myself captivated by her laugh and the way she listened intently when I spoke. By the end of the night, we had exchanged numbers. I gathered my courage and texted her the next day, expecting to be ignored. To my surprise, she responded immediately and agreed to have coffee with me that weekend. Our early dating phase was like something out of a movie. Despite our different backgrounds, we found common ground in almost everything. Maeve worked as a marketing executive for a prestigious firm, earning probably 3 times my teacher salary. She lived in an upscale neighborhood in a modern apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and designer furniture. Yet when she came to my humble apartment, she seemed genuinely comfortable and at ease. What struck me most about Maeve was her combination of beauty and substance. She was undeniably gorgeous, turning heads wherever we went, but she was also incredibly intelligent, compassionate, and funny. She had a way of making everyone around her feel special and valued. Despite her success, she never acted superior or entitled. She volunteered at a literacy program for underprivileged children and always treated service workers with genuine respect and kindness. Our differences actually complemented each other perfectly. I was thoughtful and introspective while she was outgoing and adventurous. She pushed me to try new experiences, and I helped her slow down and appreciate quiet moments. We balanced each other in ways that made us both better people. After 6 months of dating, Maeve invited me to meet her family. I was terrified knowing they were wealthy and sophisticated. Her parents lived in a sprawling house in the most exclusive neighborhood in the city. When we arrived, I was sweating through my best shirt, clutching a bottle of wine that I had spent far too much money on. To my relief, her parents were surprisingly warm and welcoming. Her father, a distinguished surgeon, shook my hand firmly and immediately engaged me in a conversation about education reform. Her mother, an elegant woman with the same auburn hair as Maeve, hugged me and told me she had heard wonderful things about me. It was Maeve's sister Amanda who gave me pause. From the moment we were introduced, she regarded me with barely concealed disdain. She was sleek and polished, married to a wealthy investment banker named Trevor. Throughout dinner, she made subtle comments about my profession, asking how I managed to live on a teacher's salary with feigned concern. I brushed it off, focusing instead on the approval I seemed to be getting from Maeve's parents. As our relationship deepened, I fell more deeply in love with Maeve each day. We created routines together: weekend hiking trips, Sunday morning breakfasts at our favorite cafe, movie nights, curled up on my worn couch. We supported each other's dreams and ambitions. When Maeve was stressed about a big presentation, I would surprise her with her favorite takeout and listen as she practiced her pitch. When I was feeling discouraged about reaching a troubled student, she would remind me of why I became a teacher in the first place. After 1 year together, I knew without a doubt that I wanted to spend my life with Maeve. I saved for 3 months to buy a ring that was modest by her family's standards, but represented everything I could give. I planned a proposal at the botanical gardens where we had spent our third date. Under a canopy of twinkling lights and surrounded by fragrant spring blooms, I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. Her joyful yes and the tears in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. The first 6 months of our engagement were blissful. We began planning our future together, discussing where we would live, whether we wanted children, how we would merge our different lifestyles. Maeve never made me feel like my financial contribution was inadequate. We agreed that we would find a home that we could afford together somewhere between our current neighborhoods. Looking back, there were subtle signs of Amanda's disapproval that I initially ignored. When we announced our engagement at a family dinner, Amanda congratulated us with a tight smile that did not reach her eyes. She made comments like, "Marriage is about more than just love, you know. It's about building a life together that makes sense." At the time, I thought she was just being practical, but later I would understand the true meaning behind her words. The change in Maeve was so subtle at first that I almost missed it. It started after she spent a weekend at Amanda's house while I was at a teaching conference. When she returned, something was different in the way she looked at me. A new critical assessment seemed to linger behind her eyes when I talked about my day at school or when I pulled on my worn jeans and favorite sweater. Soon small comments began to pepper our conversations. "Have you ever thought about moving into administration? You could make so much more money than teaching." Or, "Maybe you should let me buy you some new clothes. Those shoes are looking pretty worn." Each comment was delivered with a smile, but they stung nevertheless. This was new territory for us. Maeve had never seemed to care about my modest income or simple style before. As weeks passed, the comments became more frequent. Maeve began comparing me to her brothers-in-law or her friends' partners, all of whom had high-paying jobs and impressive credentials. "Trevor just bought Amanda a vacation home in Aspen. Isn't that amazing?" Or, "My friend Kate's husband was just made partner at his law firm. They are celebrating with a trip to Europe." The distance between us grew physically as well as emotionally. Maeve began working late, more often canceling our standing dates and spending more weekends with her sister. When we were together, she was distracted, constantly checking her phone or finding fault with small things I did or said. One evening, I came home early from a faculty meeting to surprise Maeve. I heard her voice from the bedroom, apparently on the phone. I was about to announce my presence when I heard my name. Curiosity got the better of me, and I paused in the hallway listening. "I know, Amanda. I have been thinking about what you said," Maeve was saying, her voice lower than usual. "Sometimes I do wonder if Jake is really in my league. When we are around your friends, I notice how different he is. He does not fit in, and it makes me uncomfortable." My heart turned to ice in my chest. I stood frozen, unable to move or make a sound. "No, I do love him," Maeve continued. "But maybe you are right. Love is not always enough, is it? I need to consider my future carefully." I retreated silently and left the apartment, walking aimlessly for hours, the conversation replaying in my mind. When I finally returned home, I confronted Maeve about what I had heard. She denied that the conversation meant anything significant, claiming that Amanda was just being protective and that she had only been humoring her sister. I tried to believe her, but the seed of doubt had been planted. I began noticing more changes in Maeve, more criticisms of my clothes, my friends, my interests. She suggested I get a haircut at her expensive salon rather than my usual barber. She bought me designer clothes that I felt uncomfortable wearing. It was as if she was trying to transform me into someone else entirely. The breaking point came at a dinner party hosted by Amanda and Trevor. It was an elegant affair with Amanda's wealthy friends all dressed impeccably and discussing vacation homes and stock portfolios. Despite wearing the new clothes Maeve had bought me, I felt completely out of place. I tried to join conversations about education policy, a topic I knew well, but was repeatedly talked over or dismissed. Then came the moment that would be seared into my memory forever. Amanda, glass of champagne in hand, loudly asked me across the table, "Jake, do you ever worry that you are holding Maeve back? I mean, with your salary, she will never be able to live the life she grew up expecting. Everyone deserves to maintain their standard of living, do not you think?" The table fell silent. All eyes turned to me, then to Maeve, waiting for her to defend me. But she just looked down at her plate, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Not for her sister, but for me. In that moment, I knew something fundamental had changed between us. The drive home was silent. When we arrived at my apartment, I asked her directly, "Are you ashamed of me?" She did not answer immediately, which was answer enough. Eventually she said, "I love you, Jake. But sometimes I wonder if we are being realistic about our future together. Our worlds are so different." The arguments escalated over the next few weeks. Maeve began canceling our wedding planning sessions, claiming she was too busy with work. When we did meet with vendors, she seemed distracted and uninterested. She started making comments about how perhaps we should postpone the wedding just until we were more settled. Then came the day that shattered my world completely. Maeve asked me to meet her at a cafe near her office. I knew from her tone what was coming, but nothing could have prepared me for the actual moment. "Jake, I cannot do this," she said, sliding her engagement ring across the table to me. "I love you, but I do not think we are right for each other long term. Our lives are moving in different directions." Her voice was steady, as if she had rehearsed this speech many times. I begged her to reconsider, reminded her of all we had shared, the love we had built. But she had made up her mind. The woman who had once looked at me with such love and acceptance now regarded me with a kind of pity that was unbearable. It was a mutual friend, Sarah, who finally told me the truth 2 weeks later. Amanda had been systematically working to convince Maeve that I was beneath her, that she was settling for less than she deserved. She had introduced Maeve to a wealthy doctor friend, suggesting that he was a much more suitable match. The worst part was learning that Maeve had been seeing this doctor while still engaged to me, comparing us like products she might purchase. The emotional devastation was total. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks because I could not eat. Sleep eluded me night after night as I replayed every moment of our relationship, wondering if any of it had been real. I went through the motions at work, but my students noticed my distraction and lack of enthusiasm. My apartment, once filled with memories of Maeve, became a prison of reminders. Her favorite coffee mug in my cabinet, the painting we had bought together at a street fair, the indentation on the left side of my bed where she used to sleep. The moment I hit rock bottom is crystal clear in my memory. Exactly 23 days after our breakup, I was grocery shopping at the high-end market near Maeve's apartment. I rarely shop there because of the prices, but they had a particular brand of tea that Maeve had introduced me to, and in my pathetic state I wanted that small connection to her. As I reached for the tea, I heard a familiar laugh. Turning around, I saw Maeve at the wine section with a tall, handsome man in an expensive suit. She was looking up at him with the same sparkle in her eyes that she used to have for me. Her hand rested comfortably on his arm as he selected a bottle of wine that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. They had not seen me, and I fled the store without buying anything. I made it to my car before the breakdown hit. Uncontrollable sobs racked my body as I realized she had truly moved on, not just with anyone, but with exactly the type of man her sister thought was worthy of her. I called in sick to school for the entire next week. My principal, concerned after my 3rd day absent, called to check on me. I claimed it was a severe flu, but in reality I could barely function. I alternated between lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, and sitting on my couch in the same sweatpants for days, surrounded by takeout containers and unwashed dishes. My phone rang constantly with concerned friends, but I ignored them all. I scrolled through old photos of Maeve and me, torturing myself with memories of happier times. I even drove past her apartment building one night at 2 a.m, a behavior I now recognize as unhealthy and concerning. The turning point came in an unexpected form. An email from Maeve's mother, Margaret. The subject line simply read, "I am sorry." The message was brief, but hit me like a physical blow. Dear Jake, I want you to know that your father and I are deeply disappointed in Maeve's decision. We have always valued substance of character over social standing, and we saw in you the qualities that truly matter. Maeve is making a mistake that I fear she will come to regret. Please take care of yourself. You deserve happiness with someone who recognizes your worth. Warmly, Margaret. I read the email 20 times, crying fresh tears that somehow felt different from the ones before. These were not just tears of loss but of validation. Maeve's own mother believed I had been wronged. The next day, my best friend Marcus literally broke into my apartment using the spare key I had given him years ago. He took one look at me, at my unwashed hair, and the state of my apartment, and said, "Enough. This ends today." He forced me to shower, changed my bedsheets, and threw away the rotting food in my refrigerator. Then he sat me down for the most direct conversation of our friendship. "Jake, what happened to you is awful. Maeve made a terrible choice, and it hurts. But you are giving her and her sister way too much power. They do not get to decide your worth. Only you do." As he spoke, something shifted inside me. I had been defining my value through Maeve's eyes, accepting her sister's assessment that I was not good enough. But why? Who was Amanda to judge me? Who was Maeve, for that matter, to decide I was lacking because I chose to teach rather than chase wealth? For the first time since the breakup, I felt a flicker of anger instead of just pain. Not a destructive anger, but the kind that fuels positive change. I realized that I deserved someone who valued me for exactly who I was. Someone who saw my passion for teaching as a strength, not a limitation. Someone who would stand up for me when others tried to demean me. That evening, I called a therapist whose number Marcus had given me months ago when I was struggling with my father's health issues. Dr. Patterson had an opening the following week, and I committed to regular sessions. In therapy, I began to process not just the betrayal but also my own insecurities that had made me vulnerable to Maeve's rejection. I realized that part of me had always felt unworthy of Maeve, had always been waiting for her to realize she could do better. This insecurity had allowed her sister to plant seeds of doubt that found fertile ground in both of us. Dr. Patterson helped me see that true confidence comes from within, not from external validation or comparison to others. As the weeks passed, I began to rebuild my life. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my relationship with Maeve. I joined a local hiking group and discovered a passion for photography on our weekend trips. I volunteered at a literacy program for adults, finding profound fulfillment in helping others discover the joy of reading. At school, I channeled my energy into creating innovative lesson plans that engaged even my most reluctant students. My department head noticed the change and asked me to lead a workshop for other teachers. This led to an unexpected opportunity to apply for a curriculum development position that would allow me to remain in the classroom while taking on more leadership responsibilities and, yes, earning a better salary. 6 months after the breakup, I barely recognized my own life. My apartment had been completely rearranged, removing all traces of Maeve. I had new friends, new interests, and a new sense of purpose. I had even gone on a few casual dates, though nothing serious had developed. Most importantly, I had a new relationship with myself, one built on self-respect rather than the approval of others. It was in this state of hard-won equilibrium that fate decided to test me. I was at my favorite coffee shop, grading papers on a Saturday afternoon, when the bell above the door chimed. I glanced up automatically and found myself looking directly at Maeve. She froze when she saw me, her eyes widening in recognition, and something else I could not immediately identify. She looked different, somehow less polished than I remembered. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore minimal makeup. She hesitated for a moment before approaching my table. "Jake," she said softly, "you look really good." And in that moment, I realized the emotion in her eyes was regret. The weeks following that chance encounter at the coffee shop brought a flood of communication attempts from Maeve. Text messages appeared on my phone at all hours. "I want to talk. I miss you. I made a terrible mistake." Emails landed in my inbox with subject lines that tugged at emotions I thought I had processed. "Can we meet? I need to explain. Please give me a chance." I read them all but responded to none. not out of spite or to punish her, but because I needed time to process what I was feeling. The man I had been 6 months earlier would have jumped at the opportunity to reconcile, would have seen her regret as validation. But I was no longer that man. From mutual friends, I learned what had happened in Maeve's life since our breakup. The doctor Amanda had set her up with Dr. Stephen Williams had indeed been wealthy, handsome, and socially connected. On paper, he was everything Amanda thought Maeve deserved. In reality, he had been controlling, condescending, and eventually verbally abusive. Their relationship had lasted only 3 months before imploding spectacularly at a charity gala where he had humiliated Maeve in front of her colleagues for expressing a political opinion different from his own. 2 weeks after the coffee shop sighting, I finally agreed to meet Maeve at a neutral location, a park bench near the lake, where we used to feed ducks on Sunday mornings. When she arrived, I was struck by how nervous she seemed, so different from the confident woman I had fallen in love with. We sat in awkward silence for several minutes before she spoke. "I do not even know where to begin, Jake. I ruined the best thing in my life because I listened to someone else instead of my own heart." As she talked, the full story emerged. Amanda had been planting seeds of doubt from the moment she met me. At first, Maeve had defended me, but Amanda's persistent comments about social compatibility and financial security had eventually worn her down. After that weekend at Amanda's house, the campaign had intensified. Amanda had shown Maeve photos of her friends' failed marriages to men of different social backgrounds, had forwarded articles about financial stress being the #1 cause of divorce. "You have to understand, she was so convincing," Maeve explained, tears streaming down her face. "She made me believe I was being realistic, not shallow. That I was protecting both of us from inevitable disappointment." I listened without interrupting, feeling a strange detachment from the pain that would have overwhelmed me months before. When she finished, I simply asked, "Why did you not stand up for me at that dinner party? Why did you let her humiliate me?" Maeve looked down at her hands. "Because by then I was already ashamed. Not of you, but of myself, for doubting what we had. I was caught between my sister and my heart, and I froze. It is the biggest regret of my life." Her honesty was disarming, but it did not change what had happened. I told her I needed more time to think, and we parted with no promises made. A week later, an unexpected confrontation occurred. I was leaving the grocery store when I heard someone call my name. I turned to see Amanda approaching, her expression uncharacteristically uncertain. "Jake, can we talk for a minute?" Curiosity overcame my instinct to avoid her, and I agreed. We sat at a small table outside a nearby cafe. "I owe you an apology," she began, surprising me completely. "I interfered in your relationship with Maeve because I thought I knew what was best for her. I was wrong, and I have hurt both of you terribly." Her apology seemed genuine, but I needed to understand. "What made you so certain I was wrong for your sister?" I asked. Amanda sighed deeply. "My parents married for love. My father was a medical resident when they met, and my mother came from money. Her family nearly disowned her. They struggled for years while he built his practice. I saw how hard it was for her to adjust to having less than she grew up with. When I met Trevor, I promised myself I would never have to make those sacrifices. I want you to know," she continued, "that Maeve and I have hardly spoken since her breakup with Stephen. She blames me for convincing her to leave you, and she is right to do so." As I looked at this woman who had caused me so much pain, I felt no desire for revenge or justice. Instead, I felt pity for someone who had reduced love to a financial transaction. Standing up from the table, I simply said, "I forgive you, Amanda. I hope you find happiness that transcends bank accounts and social status." Then I walked away feeling lighter than I had in months. The next day, Maeve called and asked to meet again. This time we met at a small restaurant where we had celebrated our first anniversary. She looked hopeful as I sat down across from her. "I have broken things off with Amanda," she said immediately. "Not just because of what happened with us, but because I realized she has never had my best interests at heart. She has always been jealous of me, of the relationship I had with our parents, of my career success. Using Stephen to separate us was just the most destructive example of her interference." Maeve reached across the table for my hand. "I have never stopped loving you, Jake. What we had was real and precious, and I threw it away because I temporarily lost sight of what truly matters." Please tell me it is not too late for us. Looking at her, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Part of me still loved her. How could I not? But another part recognized that something fundamental had broken between us, something that perhaps could never be fully repaired. I do forgive you, Maeve, I said gently, not taking her outstretched hand. And I believe you when you say you are sorry. But I am not the same person I was 6 months ago. That experience changed me. It forced me to find strength I did not know I had, to value myself in ways I never did before. Her eyes filled with tears. So there is no chance for us. I did not say that. I just think we would need to start over slowly as the people we are now. I cannot pick up where we left off and pretend nothing happened. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. I can accept that. Whatever you need, however long it takes. I just want a chance to show you how much I have changed too. We agreed to take things one day at a time with no promises or expectations. Whether we would eventually rebuild our relationship remained to be seen, but I knew that whatever happened, I would never again allow someone else to define my worth. A month later, I was having dinner at my favorite Italian restaurant when Maeve and her parents walked in. Margaret spotted me first and came over to my table, pulling me into a warm hug. Her husband shook my hand with genuine pleasure. Maeve hung back, clearly wanting to give me space to interact with her parents without pressure. As they were being seated at their table, Maeve's father leaned in and said quietly, "Whatever happens between you two, I want you to know that I respect how you have handled yourself through all of this. It takes a strong man to stand up for his own worth." His words stayed with me long after they had gone. In that moment, I realized that the journey I had been on was never really about winning Maeve back or proving Amanda wrong. It was about discovering my own inherent value, independent of anyone else's assessment. 2 weeks after that restaurant encounter, I met someone new. Allison was a children's librarian who came to my school for a literacy event. Our connection was immediate and easy, free from the complications that had ultimately undermined my relationship with Maeve. Allison appreciated my passion for teaching, found my modest apartment charming rather than lacking, and stood up for me fiercely when a rude waiter tried to rush us through dinner on our third date. When Maeve learned I was dating someone new, she was understandably hurt, but also gracious. "I hope she makes you happy, Jake. You deserve that more than anyone I know." Looking back on the painful journey that brought me to this point, I can now see the valuable lessons embedded in the heartbreak. I learned that love without respect cannot last. That true partnership means standing beside each other, especially when it is difficult. That no relationship can thrive when external judgments are given more weight than the bond between two people. Most importantly, I learned that the concept of leagues, the idea that some people are above or below others based on wealth, appearance, or social status, is not just shallow but actively destructive. It reduces the beautiful complexity of human connection to a crude ranking system that misses everything that truly matters. Today, I am genuinely grateful for the painful experience that taught me to value myself. Without it, I might never have discovered my own strength or recognized what I truly deserve in a relationship. Sometimes the most devastating losses lead to the most profound growth. So if you are watching this and feeling inadequate because someone has made you believe you are not in their league, remember this: the only league that matters is the one where two people respect, support, and stand up for each other without reservation. Anything less is not worth your precious heart. Have you ever been told you were not good enough for someone you cared about? How did you handle it? Share your experience in the comments below. And do not forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my story resonated with you. Remember that your worth is not determined by anyone else's assessment, and you deserve someone who sees and celebrates your unique value. Thank you for listening, and I wish you love that honors exactly who you are.